The following episode, while still relevant, was recorded before A.J. Preller declared nuclear war against the rest of Major League Baseball after trading for Dylan Cease. Please be advised.
On today's show, we are so close, just 6 days away from finally getting the answers to the question of, what's San Diego Padres opening day lineup going to look like? We're going to be asking that question and answering it and all the other questions surrounding the Padres lineup. It's going to be real fun.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Wednesday, March 14th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You may be familiar with my baseball-related work over at Just Baseball, where I write not just about the Padres, but baseball in general. Maybe you like my report on the game Blaseball. Maybe you liked when I talked about Castles for Ryan Mountcastle, or my upcoming Padres season preview. You can go check that out there, as well as a new show that I've got coming out over at Just Baseball too, that you'll be hearing about very soon. Ladies and gentlemen. But also, follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiiipeno, or at LO_Padres, or Locked On Padres on YouTube, wherever you want to go. Because today, folks, we're delivering some hot fire. You know what I mean? All the hot takes today. We're laying it all out on the diamond. You know what I mean? Not really. We're just going to be talking about the Padres lineup and some of the questions about it, and whether or not the lineup even matters, frankly, in a lot of ways. I think it's one of the more over-discussed things when it comes to putting together a baseball team, but that could just be me. And we're going to talk about it, guys. Today's episode is going to be a blast, ladies and gentlemen, because it's one of the first episodes I've done in a while where it's like going to get really in the mood for opening day. You know, I'm so excited. And I know that opening day is different for the Padres this year with the opening, series in Seoul. That's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm talking about what kind of I expect for that game. And the reason I say that is because it is totally possible that 2-game set happens. And then when the rest of MLB opening day happens, the domestic opening day for the Padres, that a signing or two may occur. Right, so this episode is excluding possible signings, excluding Pham, for example, excluding Michael A. Taylor and Adam Duvall. Those are kind of like the other players that might join this team. In my opinion, someone like Pham is the one that is probably the most likely, but we'll have to see. But for now, giving my take on the rest of the Padres lineup, because look, losing Soto, it cannot be understated or overstated, whichever version, how massive of a loss that is for the Padres this year. And again, he led the team in WAR last year. WRC plus is 155. Even being arguably one of the worst defensive players in baseball, he's still an all-star MVP player. That is how good of a bat Juan Soto is. And by the way, I'm not exaggerating. -6 defensive run saved, -9 outs above average in left field last year. My God, is he lucky he can hit. But in terms of the rest of the lineup, look, there's a lot of questions this year. We've been talking about them all offseason. And for me, I think that a lot of this is going to come down to, for the Padres, the rest of the lineup. I have been bullish on Tatis, just like everybody else. I think Manny Machado is going to be a lot better this year. I think that with the injury that was bothering him a bit last year, that he says, I believe, was bothering him a lot of last year, might explain a little bit why the batting average went down, why he wasn't just getting regular hits, why, it was never there, right? And Machado was actually one of the people that, along with Xander Bogaerts, that was really bad with runners on base and was specifically so much better when runners weren't on base. You know what I mean? Like Manny Machado's, the difference between his solo shots last year versus his home runs with men on base was kind of wild. From what I remember, I'm actually pulling that up right now, but, I expect those guys to get better. I really do. I think that with a lot of this stuff, it is just kind of, one of those things where stars kind of vacillate year to year. You know what I'm saying? Like when it comes to, hitting in the clutch and stuff like that. And yeah, Machado, low leverage last year, 123 WRC plus, medium 117, high leverage 58 WRC plus. Just to give you a little bit of an idea. And in terms of like home runs, I want to see if I got that right. I hope I wasn't just talking out of my butt. In terms of home runs, yeah, like with bases empty, he hit 18. With men on base, he hit 12. men in scoring position 8. So it wasn't as bad as I thought. I thought it was something like 22-8, the split between solo shots and runners on base. But even still, the overall lack of hitting and high leverage really hurt Machado last year. And I expect all of that to improve. The question is going to be the rest of the lineup and what does it look like? Let's start first with some of the biggest questions for the Padres lineup. And I first want to bring up the legendary, the immaculate question, which is, does this even matter? Before we get into the rest of the lineup. In my opinion, not really. I think it is one of the more overstated things that we discuss. Because my thing is, it's just, just put the best players on top and just kind of hope for the best from there, right? And also, this is a team that I do think will have a lot more changes. I think that the lineup, aside from Tatis, Cronenworth, Machado, Bogaerts, and Kim, I think that a lot of players could be, jumping in and out. You know what I mean? Like, I actually think that there's at least a little bit of a chance of some platoon type of matchups, especially when Machado gets back to third base. And again, which is why, we're talking about like the early part of the season, the series in Seoul. I'm not going to project that far because we don't know what's going to happen. Like, for all we know, they might sign Jesse Winker and have him hitting only against lefties or whichever lefties or righties. I'm forgetting what splits he's better at. I could see that happening. But for now, that's what I'm talking about. But in general, not that this is going to be like the Gabe Kapler Giants, where they use literally like every single player on their roster evenly, with the exception of a couple. You know what I mean? Like, basically, it's like every other day players nonstop. That's not what I'm saying, but I do think that players at third base while Machado's out. I do think the DH spot. I think that even first base, they've hinted at someone like Graham Pauley potentially might get some reps over at first base sometimes. So I do think those type of things will change. But alas, we can only do what's right in front of us. And I want to start off by discussing Mr. AJ Cassavell, writer for the Padres over at MLB.com. He posed the question of Cronenworth. And Cronenworth is actually, in my opinion, one of the more fascinating players to kind of slot in. Where is he going to hit? And believe it or not, the answer might surprise you, because while Jake Cronenworth is the worst of the bunch, the crop of players on the Padres that are, the star level players, the top of the line, the premier players, the ones that have been extended, I think that he actually made a lot of good points and has really, I'm not going to lie, changed my perspective on what I think the Padres lineup should be, even if they were to do a couple different things. I kind of like this idea. But before we get into that, folks, I just want to take one quick break to talk about the folks over at Amazon Fire TV. Here's the thing. I've discussed this before. My friend years ago lost his Fire TV stick, and it cursed us for all eternity, ladies and gentlemen. Almost as much as the Jake Cronenworth contract might curse us for all eternity. Or that was a little bit mean. Eric Hosmer is the one that really cursed us for all eternity. But still, Amazon Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV. That provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes. And guess what? Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well, man. They got you covered with the Fire TV. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. It is super cool. I liked using it myself. Just a nice hub. And who doesn't like a nice little hub world? You know what I'm saying, for all these things. Am I right? You guys like hub worlds. Even if it's in video games, you like hub stuff like that. Is your sports destination, and you will soon probably be seeing me on there every now and then, and certainly more baseball stuff as the season goes along. So again, guys, to learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV to learn more. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering why I did the ad break so early, it's because we got more super exciting gifts and little trinkets for you guys. And this one coming, of course, from longtime sponsor FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sports book. And again, look, it's March Madness, and there's regular hoops going on too. You want to bet on some NBA futures? Nikola Jokic has taken a leap in the MVP thing. A big leap, to the point where I'm wondering, voter fatigue with the NBA. Maybe look at the SGA odds. It might actually be now the chance to look into that. But with March Madness, guys, they've got you covered with a big ol' and speaking of madness, a wild offer for you at FanDuel.com. $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That applies to new customers. Very, very cool. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, whatever. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Me personally, I don't know yet. I haven't looked at the bracket. I know nothing about the men's. And for women's, it sounds like it's going to be South Carolina pretty easily. But is the Caitlin Clark thing going to intervene? Is USC with Juju Watkins going to intervene? I don't know. But you can bet on it, folks. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down those nets. Go check it out. And folks, we're back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, part of your first listen every day. Remember to go check out the YouTube and everything as we are getting closer and closer to the season very clearly. I mean, I'm talking about opening day lineup. Obviously, the season's right there. It is so exciting. I'm not making this up. I do, add a little oomph to some things that I say every now and then. It's because I try to hopefully deliver a show that is engaging for you all. But for the most part, I'm really genuinely excited. I'm excited to have baseball back in my life and just the everyday look of it. Just that feeling of, okay, it's 7:00 my time or whatever. I have some work to do, but I just kind of want to have something in the background. Boom. Baseball's always there for you. Dog days of summer is always there for you. It's comforting. It's like a warm blanket. Anyway, enough stalling, folks. Speaking of everyday stuff, let's talk about the lineup. So the big thing that AJ Cassavell wrote in his article is he argued that Jake Cronenworth should bat third for the team. And here's the thing. Jake Cronenworth has not been good these past few years. Let's just be real. Specifically last year, though. Because while his WAR was good in 2022, 4.2, that was actually tops among most second basemen. Not the top, but, in the top 5 of second baseman. Last year was only a 1, and he had a 92 WRC+. A big part of that is because he was at first base, and you weren't getting his defensive value to add on to his WAR, but he also just didn't hit as well. 92 WRC+ compared to the 110 the year before. I think he could be a lot better. He's been doing okay in spring. He's actually walked a decent amount. And that's one thing about Cronenworth is he is able to draw walks. That is nice. 8.8% walk rate. It was down. That was a big part for the WRC plus decline from the year before of 10.2%. I don't expect that necessarily. His average is around 9.3, so expect a little bit of improvement there. But for me, you just got to hope that he gets a little bit better. And to me, that means, and AJ Cassavell makes a note of this, should you not put him in the best position to succeed? Because here's the thing. If they're not going to be trading Kim in order to move Jake Cronenworth back to second, which is what I was campaigning for throughout the entire offseason, because I just thought trading Kim on top of what you could get back for him right now at the maximum of his potential value, you could also ostensibly get Jake Cronenworth back to his 3 to 4 winning player value if you move him back to second. That was just me. If they're not going to do that, then my thing is put him in his best position to succeed, right? Sometimes he might not be playing first base. I alluded to that earlier. They might actually have some new people at first base. They're going to move the lineup a lot, I think a decent amount this year, or at least a lot more than last year. And just the simple position change of Bogaerts off of shortstop to second base and Kim to shortstop shows me that Mike Schilt and company are not going to just sit there. And don't get me wrong, this is not a shot at Bob Melvin. I think there's something to be said for being like, I trust my stars. They're my stars. They've been doing this for a while. I'm not going to suddenly change course because things aren't going well. But I like that Schilt is already showing signs of being willing to make some new moves. So I'm excited about that. You want Cronenworth to succeed the most. And here are some of the notes that AJ Cassavell made. Good at avoiding double plays, low key. And it's true. Jake Cronenworth has actually been pretty good at double play stuff. For a team that no one is, worrying about double plays and stuff when it comes to, not worrying about double plays, but everyone loves Manny and everyone loves Bogaerts and whatnot. Hey, those guys hit into a lot more double plays last year. And among all qualified, duo of teammates, those two hit into more double plays than any duo in Major League Baseball last year. As opposed to Jake Cronenworth, who really doesn't do that nearly as much, which is really nice. And I'm proud of him. So congrats to him. And as AJ Cassavell notes, by the way, yeah, he only grounded to 8 double plays last year. That actually wasn't great. That was actually really not great, all things considered, because he actually had more than he had the previous year, which was 2. So again, he grounded some double plays last year, but even then, he wasn't playing a lot, and he was a little bit messed up, and then he was injured. So before that, though, Machado hits the ball on the ground a lot, right? Xander Bogaerts hit the ball on the ground almost 50% of the time last year. So if we're going to talk about double play possibilities, Jake Cronenworth hasn't shown that that's something he does. If anything, he just doesn't put the best contact on the ball, which is one of the things that he needs to get better at. The swing is nice, but the contact hasn't always been great. And I'm not talking about hard hit stuff. I'm just saying where he's barreling it. Is he hitting the sweet spot on the bat? Hasn't been doing as well at that. But even all that considered with the injuries, not a double play machine, which I think is a good point that Castval brings up. And there's not a lot of data to back this up, but he makes the argument that the third spot is not cracked up to be this RBI paradise necessarily. And he's a decent bid to just get on base. As I've mentioned, the one thing with him, even though his batting skills have declined a little bit, he's able to draw walks and put together some decently effective at-bats. So if you have 2 outs and Tatis and Bogaerts are both out, you could look at Cronenworth to be like, that guy just has a decent ability to get on base. And then you have Machado coming up. Then you kind of have Kim coming after that, or Campuzano, right? So he could almost sit as like this intermission point where if this part failed, the people who usually drive in the runs failed, then you have Cronenworth to get on base and be driven in potentially. I actually don't think it's inconceivable that Cronenworth is like could he score 100 runs? It's not inconceivable. He scored 94 one year. Yeah, I don't think he's a 90-run scoring guy because I don't think that his speed is great enough for that. Not that he's slow or anything, but he's not the best speed guy in the world. But even still, I like that point that Castval brings up. And also, speaking of being put in the best position to not fail, since we're clearly going to be trying him out, we're not moving him away. We're not going to put him back to second base permanently because that's what looks like what's going to happen with Kim. Although, by the way, just throwing it out there, if Kim leaves, Bogaerts back to short, Cronenworth back to second, you go sign Pete Alonso in the offseason? I'm just saying, this is what I've been telling guys. Look, I dare you to hear that proposal and be totally against it. That's all I'm saying for future money. But anyway, that's another episode. He has a career 770 OPS against righties, which is better than some other players on the team like Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. And I think that that's an important thing. And if you're going to be mixing and matching, if you want to have, this is a team that the biggest problem with them after the Juan Soto trade happened is, well, aside from losing Juan Soto, was there's only one lefty in the lineup and it's Jake Cronenworth. So my thing is, if you face the right player, if you face a righty that is going to be successful against Tatis and Manny and just all the righties in the lineup, it's good to have like a break in between that, which is another thing that Castval argues. And I think that this is the greatest thing in favor of putting Jake Cronenworth there. You get to split the lineup up, especially at the top, a lot more. You don't want the top of your order to be rendered a lot weaker any given day. You know what I mean? You want to have at least some little change-offs there. And this affects the bottom of the lineup too. Because if you have some lefties at the bottom of the lineup, then boom, you could start off with some righties at the top and it won't feel like you're going too lefty heavy at points, right? So that's what I like about it. I think Castval makes some great points. You can go read the rest of the article over at MLB.com. I think it's great. And if anything, by the way, one of the latest lineups from the Padres back on Wednesday, which some people who are connected to the team were saying and reporting and also told me that this could be an idea of what the lineup looks like opening day. The lineup was Bogaerts, Tatis, Cronenworth, third, Machado, Kim, Pauley, Campuzano, Profar, Merrill. I think all of that is what you can expect opening day, with the exception of Xander Bogaerts. I'm a little bit curious about that one. But even still, I think that this is an awesome idea from Castval, and I think that they should do it. I think you should make whatever it is that can help Cronenworth. Do not give up on him after this past year. Try to salvage it. Not everything is just, like, he was bad, the end. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that they should be operating that way. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that that should be something they're doing. I will say on Xander Bogaerts, he hasn't really batted. He never wow, hold on. Give me 1 second. He never batted second last season. Over his career, he's batted there at least a couple times, I'm pretty sure. Let me look up the career real quick. In terms of his career hitting second in the lineup, his numbers go down a decent amount. He's got a 129 WRC plus batting leadoff, while he's got an 84 WRC plus batting second. So that raises the question, who the heck should bat leadoff for this team? Because it could be Bogaerts, it could be Hassan Kim, or it could be Tatis. Let's make the argument for all three of them, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're going to do right now, because that's what we do out here. First, let's talk about Fernando Tatis Jr. before we get back into Bogaerts and Hassan Kim. I think I've been saying this for a while, for a long time. And that is that Tatis is kind of a little bit of an example of the new age of baseball thinking, which it used to be like your big power hitters should always be, the 4 spot or the 3 spot. But I think one thing that's happened is that teams, and I think this started with someone like Ronald Acuna Jr., where like these freak athlete guys who have speed and power, teams are actually saying we should actually bat these guys first because they get more at bats, for one thing. They have, because of their speed, they are a problem if you get them on base, right? Because of that becomes a big problem. So as a result, it's like a game flow thing. Players tend to get more fastballs when they're the first spot in the lineup because you don't want to walk Tatis, right? And more fastballs has the opportunity for Tatis to really unleash and hit like home runs, hit big extra base hits, or frankly, just be able to get on base better. So that's the argument for Tatis, I think. And in terms of his career as a leadoff hitter, he's actually done quite well. Mr. Fernando Tatis Jr. He's done very well over the course of his career with, a couple slumps and whatnot baked in there. Amongst all the positions, amongst the top 4 batting spots, he by far has been best batting first. 158 WRC plus when batting first. When batting second, a 117. When batting third, a 111. Batting fourth, 175. Batting fifth, 239. But in terms of the big sample size and all that stuff, it seems like over the course of his career, that's been where Tatis has succeeded the most, right? In all the at-bats, that's the one that he did the best with. And mostly what he's done is fourth, first, and second. Those are the positions that he's had in the lineup. And the one that he seems the most comfortable with is first. I will say, we saw last year Tatis is ready to do whatever it takes to help the team win. Maybe you do move him down if you find a better reason to put Bogaerts or Hassan Kim. What we're going to get into in just 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out. Speaking of lineups, you could create your own lineup with Prize Picks, ladies and gentlemen. It is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting to play with daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers instead of all these thousands of pro players and, gambling sharks and whatnot. Don't worry. It's just you versus the system, dare I say. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Just because football season is over, don't worry. You can still do stuff. I know. When you think daily fantasy, you think football. That's what everyone thinks. Fantasy football. It's like the big phenomenon, right? Well, don't worry. You can go check this out. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Very, very cool. But also, remember, we got baseball. You know what I'm saying? We got baseball rolling around. So baseball, they help you out too. They've got some celebrities, famous players on the platform. You can go to their community plays under their promos tab to check that out and view against the biggest competition. They even offer injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, for example, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return the second, the player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entry stays live, folks. Very, very cool. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to 100 buckaroos. Just for you, just for listening to this podcast, I give you that. That's right. Download the app again. Use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. And folks, we're in the waning moments. This is the Return of the King arc of today's Locked On Padres podcast episode. We are talking the Padres lineup. We just talked about my case for why Tatis should lead off and what the advantages are. Let's talk about Hassan Kim. Well, Hassan Kim was kind of the leadoff like last year. That's kind of what he did. And he was really, really good at it. And I mean, really, really good at it. Like, it was actually pretty impressive how Hassan Kim's improvements made him one of the like premier kind of leadoff guys in baseball, which is amazing. And I love that. I love that that's where he succeeded the most. And again, throughout his career, it's been a little bit mixed about where he hits in the lineup, but he's done pretty good. He's actually done a little bit better at third, but even still, the numbers aren't totally there. He hasn't had a large sample size. He's mostly hit first or towards the bottom of the lineup, right? He's not a third or fourth or fifth hitter, but 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, that's totally a possibility here. And I think actually that he could bat fifth, as we mentioned with the Padres lineup before, but, good WRC plus when he's batting first with a 120. And then last year, if you want to only look at last year, he also succeeded there. Let me just make sure I pull it up. It's hard to like copy down and like get ready when you're using Fangraphs sometimes. It's like really hard to like remember what button does what. But anyway, batting first last year, 122 WRC plus. So he was successful there. And a big reason for that is because his first pitch swing percentage got better every year from when he was in baseball. 31.6% of the time he swung at the first pitch, not the best. Then 24.9%, also not the best. And then 18.9%. So he got better there. His chase rate also improved from 24.2% his rookie year to 24.9% his second year, which was a little concerning, to 19.3%. And then lastly, his walk rate, 7.4% his first year, 8.8% his second year, and 12.2% last year. And if that's not enough, his 4.36 pitches per plate appearance is second only to Ryan McMahon. Well, it was second only to Ryan McMahon last season. So that's the type of thing that you might want from your leadoff hitter. He has a decent amount of speed for sure, too. He's also a player that you don't want to put on base. He had like 47 stolen bases last year. How many did he have, actually? Wait, how many? I might not be making that up. Yeah. No, he had 38 stolen bases last year. Like, Ha-Seong Kim is fast. So he has that going for him, just not the same power upside that someone like Tatis would have, right? Tatis would have more power to put the ball in the seats, even if it's a solo shot. That's still pretty good. Or just rip a double, rip a triple, all that type of stuff. He has the speed, all of that, right? While Hassan Kim, a little bit more plate discipline. Now, we have to see if we can get back to Tatis from a few years ago where he was able to draw more walks. But in terms of last year, wasn't a big walk guy. Meanwhile, Kim, seeing a lot of pitches. That's kind of what traditionally, aside from that tangent I went on about the new age of thinking with guys like Acuna and Tatis and how more fastballs and all that stuff, that's the traditional way of thinking, is just have a guy in there who can get a lot out of the pitcher, be a pest, dare I say. And then he's going to be annoying on a base pass because of his ability to steal second and the fact that he could score from first base potentially if need be on a double. And you have all that, and it's a little bit of a nightmare for pitchers. And he even started flashing a little bit of pop last year, especially the left field at Petco. So I'd be totally down with Ha-Seong Kim batting there. The next one, of course, is Xander Bogaerts, who's going to be very, very interesting. In terms of his career, the spot that he hasn't succeeded in is second, believe it or not. He has an 84 WRC plus there. Not great. While he has above a 100 at every other position. And this isn't a sample size thing. This is his career, right? Batting first, he has a 129 WRC plus. Third, 122. Fourth, 136. Fifth, 132. So he's arguably, dare I say, he's not a guy who's necessarily seeing the most pitches. He's not a speedster, and he's not a guy that you necessarily are expecting a whole lot of power from, right? So that might not make the most sense for having him be the leadoff hitter. But then again, if he's not that successful in the second spot, I don't want Xander Bogaerts to be the one that grounds into a double play. Now, here's the thing. Xander Bogaerts last year was just kind of ridiculous. Like I've said, it was so much of his disappointing season was because he grounded into so many more double plays than he ever has been. 21 last year, in fact, when the highest he had before that was 17 back in 2017. By the way, just for a little bit of an idea. And in that year, it was actually one of his worst seasons, by the way, with the Red Sox. But even still, like, he just hit into a lot of double plays, and he hits into a lot more than the players that I've mentioned so far. So do you want him at batting second? I don't know. Right? Like, I don't know exactly where you'd put him. I think that he's the guy that hits type of doubles, and you just have to hope that last year was some weird, like, fluke. And if it is a fluke, then no problem, because then we talk about what we talked about earlier, where Cronenworth is the type of batter who can just get on base, and that's it. That's his job, just to get on base if Bogaerts hit into a double play, and then boom, Machado can come up and maybe launch one into the seats, right? So that's what I feel. I think, personally, it's really close, though, between Tatis and Kim. I lean more towards Tatis. I like the ability, and this is what a lot of the best teams do, batting those type of players first and giving him more fastballs. This is a guy that could hit 45 home runs. He could hit 50, honestly, if we're being honest. So for the power upside, I like that, especially with the bottom of the lineup. Maybe there's going to be guys on base. It's not a guarantee that there will never be anyone on base for Tatis. You know what I'm saying? I like the ability for him to crush more fastballs. So me personally, I lean towards Tatis and then Bogaerts second, and then Kim in the fifth spot. Although I don't feel amazing about that. But let me give my personal take lastly on the lineup. Tatis, Bogaerts, Cronenworth, Machado, Kim, Campuzano, Graham Pauley, Jurickson Profar, and Jackson Merrill. So a couple notes there. One, this can all shift, right? It might depend. Maybe some more split things come out for guys like Luis Campuzano. The bottom of this lineup is very, very young, with the exception of Profar. So there's so much wiggle room where this could all change very quickly. Ha-Seong Kim could be the leadoff hitter some days, right? Maybe if it's a righty on the mound and they don't like the matchup with Tatis, maybe he starts out if he's a little bit better and doesn't have the same splits issue depending on the opponent they're facing. I could see that. Graham Pauley, I think, gets to start because you need some lefty differentiation. You go righty, righty, lefty, righty, righty. Hold on. Did I do that right? Righty, lefty, righty, or I'm sorry, a split with Jurickson Profar, and then a lefty, which would then lead into the two top of the righties with Tatis and Bogaerts at the top of your lineup with Jackson Merrill. Lefty to close it out, and then lead into the righties on base. I think having that kind of approach is better depending on the lineup they're facing, because again, that is one of the problems with the Padres is they have a lot of righties on this team. And I think that's why they haven't necessarily been bullish to sign Tommy Pham, because their thing is we like Pauley and we like Jackson Merrill. Those guys can be lefties to differentiate our lineup and not make it all rely on Jake Cronenworth against righties. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm kind of am on it. I wonder what you guys think. That's what I think the lineup should be. I don't think there's any crazy amount of things there. I think Graham Pauley gets the start. I think Eggy Rosario could absolutely get some at-bats too. This might be the platoon thing that I was alluding to, where I think we could have a lot of mix and match for certain lineup combinations with those younger guys. Eggy Rosario is still someone that might make this team, and he's been like okay before, and he can play third base, I think, a little bit better defensively, at least so far. And Graham Pauley has been the number one thing. Scouts and analysts don't know for sure what exactly is his position going to be defensively. So maybe that's what they'll try to do. They'll mix and match with Pauley. And then Jackson Merrill, that could also change with someone like Jose Azocar. But that's my vibe. You have Cronenworth third. You mix it up with the lefty. Then you go righties for a bit. And then you have some lefties at the bottom of the lineup. And then you have switch hand hitters like Jurickson Profar. And then boom, there you go. I think that's here's the thing. A lot of people are always on me like, this Padres lineup gets rough once you get to the bottom. My thing is like, okay, which lineup doesn't? You know what I mean? Answer that for me. Which lineup does, aside from Atlanta, aside from Houston, aside from the Dodgers? What lineup is 1 through 9 awesome? You know what I mean? So I've never quite understood that criticism. I know that it's not great, but this is not what it was in 2022. Heading into the 2022 season, everyone was like, the only person I trust in this lineup is Manny Machado. And at the time, Jake Cronenworth, who then had a little bit of a down year, by the way. That's what we headed into the year, being like, I don't trust anyone in this lineup outside Machado. Now you have Bogaerts, you have Tatis, you have Kim, who's improved greatly as a batter. And if you get a bounce back from Cronenworth, you have that lefty split in there. I like it. I think that this lineup can be really effective. It's not going to be world beating. I think there's a possibility they're not even in the top half of the league. But I think they will be better than last year because of the stuff with runners in scoring position and the fact that, you know, Tatis is 1 year better. He's going to be healthier. He's going to be removed from the suspension, all that stuff. That's how I'm feeling. But again, guys like Eggy Rosario can make an impact. Guys like Jose Azocar can make an impact. If the rookies aren't so great, like Graham Pauley, I could see Matthew Batten getting called up. There's a lot of different things that's going to happen with this team. So that is just my personal opening day lineup for now. And let me know what you think. Leave your comments below for any of the players that I've mentioned so far and who you'd rather move up. Do you want Bogaerts batting first because he's done better there? Go ahead, make the case. Same thing goes for Kim if you want to just run it back with him at first, top of the lineup. Whatever you think, I want to hear it, ladies and gentlemen. But with that all being said, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. In terms of the future of this show, we're probably going to do that Fun Friday thing. We're probably going to do like a where are they now for former Padres targets and whatnot that have been rumored over the years that they didn't end up getting and what ended up happening with them, just for a little bit of fun. Because frankly, running out of news, there hasn't been too much news lately, and Snell still hasn't signed. I'll leave you with this. What happens first? We get to the round of 32 in the NCAA March Madness for either women's or men's, or Blake Snell signs? Genuine question, and tell me, look me dead in the eye and tell me that with your life on the line, you'd be able to be like, yeah, I think he'll sign before then. You don't know, because that's baseball. But anyway, that's what we got planned for the future. Until that very next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friar Faithful homies, take care.